October 15th. Tonight, taking a look at our weather with the potential for some significant snowfall on the way for parts of the state. Also, a domestic violence case involving a Utah National Guardsman and his wife. Lots of new information coming down today. But first, let's get to your forecast because meteorologist Sean Kelly is tracking a major change. What do you see right now, Sean?
Well, I see some changes heading our way. I told you that this warm weather wasn't going to last forever, and I wanted everyone to get ready for it because we are looking at a big dive in the temperature here. We're talking about also our first freeze of the season for many. Dealing with high temperatures today, well above normal into the 80s, 81 in Salt Lake City, 88 so far in St. George, 90 in Vegas, Palm Springs at 97 degrees. Dealing with temperatures right now, it's even though cooling off pretty well, but it's comfortable. It's beautiful. We're into the 70s for much of the Wasatch Front, 66 in Provo, with temperatures here through the overnight cooling off into the 50s and 60s here. Out ahead of our system, the main system that will drop the temperatures, we got to get ready for one more day of wildfire conditions, especially elevated conditions, critical along I-15 and then back out towards the western part of the state as we see some strong gusty winds tomorrow out of the southwest. Some 20 to 30 mile per hour winds will be possible. To add to that, we've been very dry this month. We've been dealing with warm temperatures, the warmest start to October, which will change, but also dry conditions. 28 days without rain here in Salt Lake City, 54 days in St. George. That will all come to an end, though, as we get into Thursday and Friday especially. And Brian, a lot of this will fall in the form of snow. We'll talk about those snow levels and the accumulating snow that we'll see coming up. My first alert weather forecast.
All right, thank you, Sean. We'll check in with you in just a few as we track the major changes in our weather right now. Download the 2 News mobile app, get live radar and weather alerts sent right to your phone. That is the 2 News weather app, which is free to download. Wasatch County search and rescue members have been quite busy as of late working to help with evacuations from the Yellow Lake fire. However, there's the potential for some snowfall in the mountains later this week, and that's something they've got their eye on as well. The deer hunt also upon us, so hunters are expected to venture out in full force. Search and rescue team members are already preparing for that change of season, and they want to make sure you do the same.
Anytime you go into the backcountry, you need to be prepared for the unexpected. That's especially so with this blast of winter we're getting. It's a lot less forgiving when things are really, really cold. And the high country is expecting quite a bit of snow if the forecast holds. So when you go into the backcountry and it's cold, you just need to be ready for the unexpected because it'll probably happen to you.
What is it that you'd like the hunters to know specifically, given they've been there, they've done that, a lot of them, they know where they're going, but even just to have that plan and make sure they communicate with people that are not going on that trip with them?
Well, there's several things you can do to be better prepared. Just remember, the cold weather is unforgiving. We've been spoiled with really warm weather, unseasonably warm in October, but that's about to change. And when you're out there on the mountain and it's really cold, you got to be ready. It starts with letting people know where you're going and then actually going there. We've had people tell family they're going to a certain area and then they change their mind. And when they come up late, we're looking for the needle in the haystack. So it begins with telling people where you're going and go there. The other things that you need to be ready for in the cold weather is just for the unforgiving nature, food, fire, water. When we go from warm weather to cold, a lot of people just keep up the same habits, and then they get in the backcountry in the middle of a 2-foot storm and they get in trouble real easy. So just remember, it's going to be real cold. There's going to be a lot of snow coming in, and you just need to be prepared for the unexpected. The mindset needs to shift from warm weather. If the weather's warm and you have to spend the night, no big deal. But if the weather's really cold and wet and you need to spend the night and you're not ready for that, it can be a pretty miserable night. Just be prepared for, rather than 70s, 30 to 40 degrees colder. And even just the way you dress can be, this is a major change for us. It comes every year, and every year people go into the backcountry not expecting. I come out of Salt Lake, and it was almost 80 degrees today, and my mindset isn't ready for snow unless I really, really prepare.
Let's go in depth on one of our big stories of the day. Just a few hours ago, Jennifer Gledhill was charged with 9 felony counts, including first-degree murder. According to charging documents, Gledhill admitted to shooting her husband, Utah National Guardsman Matthew Johnson, and that was over a few weeks ago now. That happened while he was in his sleep. The district attorney's office says this information came from an informant who Gledhill was having an affair with. According to the DA's office, Gledhill shot Matthew in the head with his own handgun. Then she's accused of smashing his phone, hiding his car, and putting his body inside of her minivan. The informant says she took his body north, then buried him in a shallow grave. Matthew was last seen on September 21st. His body has not been found. Gledhill has been charged with murder, obstruction of justice, possession, and desecration of a human body, and witness tampering. Amanda Gilbert sat down with Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill after his office formally announced the filing of those charges today.
There's a call that comes to Cottonwood Heights from the defendant alleging that she had had an argument with her husband, that he's missing, that he was going to be gone for a week, and she doesn't know where he is. And then as this investigation sort of proceeds, we come to learn that there's an informant who was allegedly having an affair with the defendant, and that she told him that her husband had found out that she was seeing somebody else, and that she allegedly shot him in the head in their bed while he was asleep. And she goes on to, as we state in our probable cause statement, that she then cleaned the scene. She even goes into detail, allegedly, about how she took the body in a sort of a container and took it up north and buried it in a shallow grave. And so based on that information and then the additional investigations that continue to happen, we filed 1 count of murder, 5 counts of obstruction, 1 count of possession with intent to distribute, which was discovered, some psilocybin that were discovered there, and also a count of desecration of a human body as well as witness tampering. We're always looking at different streams of evidence that come to us, and whether it's forensic evidence, whether there's physical evidence that we find at a scene, whether there is other corroborative evidence that we have. And so in this case, it was very important to have somebody who helped corroborate. And as we state, his statements are corroborated by other physical evidence and other evidence that we gathered in tandem with that. So they complement each other. So while it gives us some insight, but it also helps us buttress and to complement other pieces of evidence that were discovered as part of this ongoing investigation. Just because we file charges does not mean that our investigation is complete, or that there are no more suspects for us to look at. So everyone who may be involved in it is going to get a critical look at it. After all, we have a alleged loss of a life, and so we're taking this very seriously, and these charges reflect that.
Well, a lot of things stand out from this, including they still don't have the body. A different perspective on this tonight. The charging documents outline some of the interesting points that include the details of what the informant told detectives. Here's Nathan Evershed, a former prosecutor, with his thoughts on how this case looks right now.
This case is fascinating. It's a bit of a circumstantial evidence case, and that doesn't mean it's necessarily weak or strong. It is what it is. In this case, they don't have a body yet. And for the prosecution to proceed on a case, they don't necessarily have to have a body. It's not an element that would have to be established for a jury to find that they have met their burden. But obviously, having a body in place where they can show to the jury, these are the remains of this individual, it makes the prosecution's job that much easier, of course, in the case of murder, to show that there was actually a deceased person. So it's really interesting to see how this will play out without the body, but it's important to know that a body is not necessarily required for the prosecution to prevail on their case. I would also note that it's really interesting. These informant cases are ones that juries are really, really critical of informants. They want to see, well, what is this person getting out of this, if anything, and to see what can be corroborated by the informant statements. In the probable cause statement, as you're very familiar with, I'm sure, you will see that's exactly what the prosecution attempted to do, was to show that this informant is reliable because this informant gave specific information, for example, like a gun that was subsequently found with a tan color. And these are things that are meant to build the credibility of an informant who apparently received a confession from the defendant that she had murdered her husband. When it comes to forensic evidence in homicide cases, that is incredibly important to juries. And in this case, they apparently have blood found in a bedroom with a new mattress. And they also are attempting to get DNA. Now, again, it takes a while to get DNA, but they've been able to determine as of right now that blood is human blood, and it's actually male human blood, which corroborates their statements. So one thing that is very much of interest to probably all parties that is interested in this case is the result of that DNA testing, and if it comes out to be her husband's actual blood. So that will be kind of a powerful piece of evidence that the prosecution would like to present. The elements of murder do not require that the state produces a deceased body. What they have to do is they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest level of proof in the American justice system, that there was a deceased body and the defendant intentionally or knowingly killed this person. So what they would have to do is produce enough evidence for a jury to feel certain that, at least by a reasonable doubt, that this individual killed another person.
Well, if you'd like to get caught up on this case, we have more on our website, KUTV.com. And a reminder, if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, there are resources available. You can always call the National Hotline and the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition. Of course, if the danger is immediate and imminent, call 911. Coming up on Arc Salt Lake, there's a couple fires burning in the state right now, including this one burning in the Manti La Salle National Forest in San Juan County. The latest next. Welcome back to Arc Salt Lake. We're continuing to follow the very latest on wildfires burning across the state of Utah. The Verdure Creek fire has burned approximately 157 acres just south of Monticello, just north of the Blue Ranch homes in San Juan County. That mapping as of this morning. The fire near those homes seeing minimal activity, with the line, we're being told, held between those homes. There aren't any fire restrictions right now in the Manti-LaSalle. No closures have been issued, but mapping of the fire will continue for this one. Crews also still battling the Yellow Lake fire burning in Wasatch and Duchesne counties. Fire now burning over 31,000 acres. That makes this fire the largest wildfire of the 2024 season. Containment has bumped up a little bit, 29%. More than 800 firefighters are at the scene of this fire. Fire crews say high fire danger, including dry conditions and really difficult terrain in spots, making things quite difficult for them. While covering this for 2 News, Kristen McPeak spoke with a firefighter working the Yellow Lake fire who knows this area well.
We got a lot of memories in this mountain, family, generational memories that are essentially getting burned away, so it's pretty tough. I'm here to assist in anywhere I'm needed. I'm glad to be able to come over and help Wasatch get started, and hopefully we can get it shut down without structures in my hometown getting in the crossfire. So, my house is actually on evacuation notice. I got family sitting down there ready to go when ready. I'm hoping that they can, keep it away from the structures, but fire has a mind of its own.
Well, it's very true. And something else that has a mind of its own, at least we can predict a little bit, is the weather, right? So something that could help this fire and the other one we mentioned is a significant change in what could be coming here to Utah. Meteorologist Sean Kelly joining us now with the first alert weather day graphic, because something serious at least seems to be looming here in the distance that could really kibosh all of these wildfires at this point. Not just the Yellow Lake fire, but others around the state.
Absolutely. We're going to have one more day of wildfire conditions tomorrow, and then it should all end as we're looking at a pretty heavy rain and mountain snow event heading our way. So we have issued first alert weather days. This is mainly for Thursday night into Friday morning, as we'll see some heavy rain and snow levels dropping, heavy snow up into the mountains, and that can make the roads pretty hazardous if you are traveling up into the mountains and even the mountain valleys here as we get into Friday morning's commute. But a big change, as I mentioned, heading our way temperature-wise as well. We're going from the 80s tomorrow, 82 degrees, down to 49 on Friday. So that is a big drop in the temperatures, and looking more and more likely that we could see our first freeze of the season for many. I do think for our cities, for the urban areas, Ogden, including Salt Lake City, Provo, will stay above freezing, including lower Washington County and Moab, but everywhere else should get pretty close to it, and certainly seeing some frost as well. So we've got winter weather advisories, or watches, that is, for the mountains here, 10 to 18 inches for the Wasatch, Cottonwoods, and including the Uintas, we'll see much more than that, 1 to 2 feet, looking pretty likely here, with temperatures right now very comfortable. We're into the 70s and 60s. We've got no rain, no snow out there now, with temperatures statewide here ranging from the 60s, 66 in Manti, Panguitch at 67, 85 in St. George. A few spot showers, by the way, this evening, even a few thunderstorms that are weakening down our southeastern corner of the state into the Monticello area. That'll weaken here through the overnight, waking up to calm conditions tomorrow, but breezy conditions with those elevated wildfire conditions, especially out towards the west. Here comes those showers, though, tomorrow afternoon. This is ahead of the system, not a big deal, but here's part one of the main storm. Mainly all rain with this first part here, up and down I-15, heavy rain, some thunderstorms. Then we'll get a break. We'll see some snowflakes flying into the afternoon, evening up into the mountains, but generally drying things out. Getting ready for part two, moving in Thursday night and into Friday morning. This is when we'll see the heaviest part of the storm and the most widespread and impactful part of the storm from Friday morning into Friday afternoon. Some heavy rain down towards the south and east, mountains seeing some heavy snow, plummeting snow levels here, with that snow continuing on into Friday morning and early Friday afternoon. So the snow levels go from 11,000 feet down to 8,000 feet on Thursday, Friday as low as 4,500 feet. So that means we could maybe see a few snowflakes flying here across the valley floor. So watch out for that. No accumulations expected. But again, the Cottonwoods will be the real winner of this, with even our central and southern mountains seeing 4 to 12 inches of snow. So 50s and 40s as we head into the overnight. We've got highs tomorrow climbing to the 80s and 70s here. St. George, we deal with temperatures here going from the 80s to the 50s as we get into Friday. Then a cool weekend ahead, nicer by next week. Along the Wasatch Front, we go from the 80s to the 60s on Thursday, 40s for your Friday. A little bit of a cool weekend, chilly, but then look at that. Next week, we start to warm things back up into the 60s and 70s, much better there by Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right, thank you, Sean. Looking at the middle part of next week already when things are back up in the 70s, just crazy. Still ahead here on Arc Salt Lake. We'll continue that conversation about what's happening here on the weather front when we return. What's that about that cool bag you got?
I got a cool bag. I was at in a wedding, my best friend's wedding, one of my best friends in New Jersey, and
Nice.
he gave us all. I didn't know the groomsmen get
You're
gifts.
supposed to get gifts.
I didn't
Yes.
know that.
Take notes, buddy.
I got so excited.
expecting a big gift.
Yeah, you're going to get a watch
All
from
right,
me.
so a big gift for the state of Utah, and for a lot of people that have been tracking kind of the dry streak, our wildfires could be coming.
Yeah, the end to our dry streak, the end to the wildfire risk is we're going to see some heavy rain and heavy mountain snow come to an end. And an end to this heat. If you were tired of the summer-like temperatures, that's coming to an end. But if you like the warm weather, hang around next